Hey everyone, it is Alex once again, and I am here today with the 319 patch notes for Lake of Kalanda. This is going to be a review of everything that's changing and my thoughts on some of the changes and whether I think they're going to be strong, underpowered, or if they're warranted, and what I think I might actually end up trying this next league. So let's go ahead and get through it. So, the typical league, we've got our Kalanda Challenge League. So this is looking like kind of a Synthesis 2.0. We're looking at these little things that you get as you map. They're essentially like the memories from Synthesis, and you add them to your Calandra mirror. And once you fill it out, you then get to open it up and you can itemize it, which is pretty cool. And you get to go ahead and run all your things that you picked over the past few maps. It looks to be basically Synthesis 2.0. I'm not going to go too much into the lead mechanic because this is mostly about balance changes. All right, so we've got a few new skill gems. They're mostly based around shock here. So we've got Galvanic Field. This is yeah, so this applies a buff when you use it. It gives you a chance to shock. This could be nice for non-crit builds, legitimately. For crit, not so much going to need that chance to shock. Basically, what this does is when you shock something, it puts essentially an orb of storms on top of that enemy, and it'll damage nearby enemies with beams of lightning, just like orb of storms. So the strength of the field depends on the magnitude of the shock, and that's a theme here with a lot of these supports. So this is kind of like a buff that triggers an orb of storms when you shock something. It seems like it could be interesting, though I anticipate it to be fairly niche. All right, next we've got Lightning Conduit, another intelligence gem. So this is going to be another shock support skill. This strikes all enemies that are shocked in an area around targeted location, and it removes the shock once that's done. Shocks cannot expire on enemies in range while casting this spell. Okay, I guess if you have a super long cast time, it'll keep the shocks on them once you initiate it. This looks like it could be pretty cool. Is definitely, I imagine, only going to be particularly strong if you're getting very big shocks. So it's probably something that's going to go along with Voltaxic Rift and various other things, though Voltaxic did get slightly nerfed this league, which is a bit unfortunate. We'll talk about that later. Um, but this could be interesting, I feel, because I actually played in a previous league a 100% shock on like Shaper and stuff, Lightning Arrow. I think it was Deadeye. Using Voltaxic and all that kind of stuff. So this could be an interesting idea for a cast on crit bow character using Voltaxic. You get huge shocks using Lightning Arrow and Voltaxic's effect of doing effectively doing more damage. You can use the a bunch of ailment effect, and once you get currency, you can use that ailment effect, flesh and flame, forbidden jewels. I think there could be an interesting cast on crit indications here. Next, we've got a support gem, Overcharge. So this is, once again, with the whole shock theme. So it supports any skill that hits enemies, so okay. And it gives them a chance to shock, which once again, nice on non-crit builds, but granting them a chance to shock and causing them to deal less damage. So I assume this means that the skill is going to have a damage debuff on the support gem. Bit unfortunate, but I guess it's understandable. This is the line I'm interested in, and I think this is actually going to play a bit into the build I'm planning for 319. It's going to shock enemies as though dealing more damage. So my hope with my Mjolnir Inquisitor build is that I can put this on one of my gym setups, either one of the Mjolnir spells or the cast on crit in my chest plate, allowing that gym to apply a big shock, though itself taking a bit of a damage hit. The other two won't take that damage hit. And so hopefully this could be a net gain for the build, essentially as a damage support for the whole setup, but only being a detriment to one of the three skills. So I think this could end up being very much useful in that Mjolnir build. Next we got Alchemist Mark. This is away from the shock theme, and it's another mark that essentially scales around big ignites and big poison. It's unfortunately not bleed, which I feel is kind of a missed opportunity personally, but I suppose bleed already has explosions. Um, so it essentially creates a burning ground or caustic ground when you ignite or poison them. And it looks like they said it does the same damage as the highest ignite or highest poison currently on the enemy. So it definitely incentivizes big ignites, big poisons. Well, everyone already does big ignites. This seems like kind of an auto-included ignite builds, and ignite builds are quite strong right now, though most of the traditional methods for doing so have been nerfed, like Pulsive Arrow and various corpse explosions. But it seems like an auto-include for Ignite builds. For Poison, it's going to require a bit more fancy building around. So I'm not sure how this is going to be balanced for Poison builds. And it seems like an auto-include for Ignite. Well, we've got some new unique div cards and rings. We're going to have foils, which seems pretty cool. The Trial Master is back. That is very cool, which does mean that his uniques are coming back. So this is a very interesting one, Archnemesis. So basically what they're doing here is as total change here is they are reducing the number of rares, but they're making each rare a lot more interesting for loot. So instead of them just being like typical rares, and before, see what I said, in some cases 6 to 8 times the normal rate of monsters, so a lot of league mechanics are making a lot less rare monsters. So the rewards have been reviewed. So the number of mons directly correlates to increased item drop bonuses, and there's also special effects like we had in Archnemesis, where things get turned into uniques, get turned into maps, and that kind of thing. So we've got our changes here, lowered number of monsters, bunch of stuff having to do with that, monster amount, monster amount. So here we have this special reward conversion system. So if you defeat a monster with the Corruptor mod, all their items become corrupted. Stellaris Touch makes it drop maps. Kitava Touched will cause it to increase rarity, upgraded by 1 tier. Magic becomes rare, rare becomes unique. This seems very cool. I think this is possibly one of the biggest changes of this league, as far as being a universal just improves the game kind of change. Obviously, there's big changes here, but this is something that affects everybody. And I think it is also a big deal because it affects game feel. It affects your ability to enjoy the play-by-play of, going through the game. You're going to find a rare, you're going to see it has a certain mod that say increases the rarity of things. And you're like, oh man, I'm really looking for this unique, or I hope I get a cool unique. You kill it, there's a huge loot explosion. It's gonna feel, I think, way more impactful to map with this game and to have big rares, and you're gonna have this duke it out with a 4 mod rare, but because of these new special reward conversion system, that 4 mod rare is gonna have something coming along with it. I think that is very, very cool. Magic monsters are getting toned down here. This is so nice for just the general chaos that goes on when you're hitting big magic packs. So a bunch of stuff just can't even spawn on it anymore, which is very cool. You're not going to have all these lightning mirages and all that kind of stuff. It just seems a lot nicer with visual clarity and general, on death effect spam and God, the lightning mirages, of course. This looks like it can be a lot nicer going forward. Oh, we got some renaming for clarity, which I think is pretty cool, and they've also basically nerfed the Sentinel and Benevolent Guardian, which also very nice. Big Beyond changes here. We have got Scourge demons instead of the old Beyond demons. This is going to be really, really cool. There's still 3 factions. The base chance for Beyond spawn world is now 15%. So multiple sources of Beyond mechanics no longer stack. Okay, interesting. So you can't juice Beyond quite as hard. Beyond bosses, a different way of spawning the bosses, but I think the big thing here is we're getting Scourge Demons and Tainted Currency is coming back. This is going to be honestly insane for the game. There's going to be a lot of new stuff people can do with their items, just like we did in Scourge Lee, and it's going to be very cool. Beyond bosses guaranteed to drop multiple, so they're not going to be too horribly rare. So this is going to be very cool. So they do appear to have adjusted how strong they are going to be. We've got we don't get scourged items, of course. And we've got some changes to the Atlas passive tree, though I think I will not be covering that in this video. I may do an Atlas passive tree video, though I'm not sure. I may go over my strategy actually for League Start. That's a good idea for a video. Harvest, holy crap, crazy changes to Harvest. So they are making it tradable, first and foremost. That's the big kicker here, but they're also making it so much simpler. You now essentially have infinite crafting save space, but it works very differently now. So they removed some of the more powerful ones, but I think that's okay for the trade-off we're getting here. So no longer, when you finish a harvest, are you presented with, 30 crafts, like they say here, that you must either use immediately or save up to 15 if you kill a Shabi and trade with some player through third-party means. Now instead, they no longer are associated with specific crafting options, and they now drop a stack of Life Force. Life Force is the new currency to craft with Harvest. It's tradable, and it's going to be on the trade site and everything, and you got the different tiers of it, and the different types of Harvest monsters. Actually, there may not be tiers. It may just be the 3 different types. And you're going to use it at the Hoarder Crafting Station. Instead of being a way to store crafts, it's now similar to a crafting bench, and it lists every Harvest crafting option, and you simply spend this life force to use it, just completely as expendable as you want it to be. It's going to be very different feel to how Harvest was before. Let's go ahead and get rid of that little search bar. I didn't realize it was there. This is going to be crazy. We're losing a lot of power in Harvest. We're losing Aug, and instead we now have Aug Annul, but the Annul is not targeted. So it's going to be very risky. It's almost like the June add a veiled mod. It removes the mod, so it's going to be like that, which people were saying is a huge downside, and it definitely is. People have controlled things like that with meta mods in the past, so I think this is still going to be a very staple craft. And now you can simply go on the trade site, buy enough life force, and do it yourself easily in your hideout without needing TFT. The various gifts of the goddess and beachhead and all that kind of stuff no longer comes from Harvest. They're going to be new sources. And the Atlas passive tree is being changed to go along with that. Another big change that's going to affect everybody. Exalted and Divine Orbs are kind of being a bit shuffled here in role. Exalted Orbs are now going to be pretty much relegated to using them on items. It's going to be an interesting impact on the economy, that is for sure, because crafting meta mods cost Divine Orbs instead of Exalted Orbs. So things like your multi-mod, cannot roll suffixes, cannot roll attack mods, that kind of thing, prefixes cannot be changed, sorry. That kind of thing is now done with Divine Orbs, and in the same quantity as well. It's not like it's, 20 Divine Orbs, it's like 2. And Divine Orbs have been removed from the 6-link vendor recipe. The Divine Orbs are already a rare drop. A lot of Divine Orbs came from corrupted item spamming and getting these 6-link vendor recipes to give you Divine Orbs. Now they give fusings, and not that many. The Divine Orbs are going to be expensive this league and probably going forward, and Exalted Orbs are going to be a lot cheaper. This is going to be crazy. Like I said, prefixes cannot be changed, suffixes now can be changed, and multi-mod are now 2 Divine Orbs. The cannot rolls are 1 each. Everything that used to cost an X is now based on Divine Orb, and it seems, Veiled modifiers that had a Divine Orb cost when crafted now. Oh, so Exalted Orbs are now taking over Veiled modifiers. So yeah, they've kind of swapped them around. This is very interesting. I had not realized that. You've got some stuff that's getting increased drop rate because Divines are going to be much harder to get now. This is a big change. I don't think it's going to have much of an effect on fusing price, but I suppose we'll see. Cheap fusings are always a good thing, and don't forget we now have the Scourge corrupted fusings. Getting into the unique item changes. There are a lot. It said over 100, so this is going to be a long one. I will skim over the ones that seem simple, but there are some very spicy ones that have not been revealed yet through those Twitter posts and the like. So this is actually one that's huge. This Albron's Warpath. Holy crap. You lose the +1 skeleton. That's a big downside, but your skeleton warriors, so not mages, only warriors, something to consider, are now permanent minions. This is definitely something that could be investigated for a minion build, and I think this is going to be something that we're going to see in 3.19. I am excited to see a minion entirety build that isn't going to be resummoning them. It's going to be interesting. This is just losing some damage over time. Ambu's charge is getting a little bit different. So instead of getting endurance charge when you gain a critical strike, you gain up to your maximum when you take a crit strike, so a little bit more consistent. And instead of sharing your endurance charges with party members, your nearby party members' maximum endurance charges are equal to yours. So it seems like you aren't giving the charges to your party, but their maximum goes up. So they're going to need their own charge generation. At least that seems what it looks like. And you're losing the life regen. A bit of a weird change, I feel, but there's definitely some opportunities here, particularly in party play. Obviously, because nearby party members. But you could maybe have an endurance charge support that just has like 15 endurance charges. It's an option. This is just getting a bit of a block buff to Anvil. It's pretty cool. Apex Rage, huge buff to Apex Rage. Instead of 20% faster, we're getting 50% faster poisons on Apex Rage. Spell Poison, looking pretty spicy. This unique amulet no longer giving life regen, but it now gives elusive on low life and phasing. Elusive and phasing on low life for a leveling amulet. I do not believe the level requirement of this is very high. I may be wrong. Man, that's some stuff right there. Asenath Mark. So we have Asenath Chant and Asenath Mark. I imagine Asenath Chant is going away, or already. I don't remember how this worked exactly. We're losing the cast speed and the move speed, but we're getting the trigger, which we did have on Asenath's Chant. But we're getting a big spell damage. Like 60% is a lot of spell damage for a helmet slot. And, you know, it's unique that a lot of these cast on crit bow builds we're using anyway. So just getting free 60% increased spell damage on every bow cast on crit build, it's pretty good. Also, this is the kind of helmet I was thinking you could maybe use for that shock, that new shock gem that has a lightning strike on shocked enemies. I think this could be an interesting way to do it. This way you aren't having to use cast on crit with your attack. You can simply use a fully 6-linked lightning attack with lightning arrow, and then also have this in your helmet to trigger that spell. Ash Collar is getting a new, pretty interesting thing here. It basically a higher chance and a higher leveling SRS. It's pretty cool. A huge amount of fire damage to spells, but it's losing its chance to ignite. Its burning damage and the fire damage over time multiplier. So basically, it is becoming purely for the SRS, but it does get covered enemies on Ash, which is pretty damn nice. The hard mod to get in a lot of places. Ash Rind is getting quite a bit changed. We're going from added fire damage to just a bunch of physical damage with ranged weapons. 150% is a lot, and Ashrin's not a super high level requirement by any means, so this could definitely be an interesting level unique for ranged builds. Beast for Shawl, I don't think this is particularly interesting. It's just getting more energy shield, but then the increased damage taken is worse. I'm not super sold on this one. Bitter Dream, we've already seen this one, level 15 gems instead of level 1. Replica Bitter Dream's getting the same treatment here. We haven't seen this one. But Immolate, Unbound Elements, Ice Bite, Inspiration, and Innervate. Immolate and Innervate. So this one I don't think has quite as much synergy as the Bitter Dream. But there is definitely something here, possibly. It's just much more niche, I feel, than the Bitter Dream one. Blackheart is getting a good amount of chaos damage and life regen for being a level 0 unique. It's going to be quite interesting. Blood of Corruption Amulet is getting a lower level requirement. I actually don't know what this amulet does. Bramblejack is getting We have extra reduced physical damage taken, a bunch of life, and 1,000% of melee physical damage taken reflected to attacker. Reflect build win? Might be something there. I'm not sure. Brian Crown. I apologize. Just a good bit of max cold res. Definitely pretty potent. Bringer of Rain. This is one that I'm definitely interested in. We have level 30 melee phys damage, faster attacks, and blind. They were previously level 18. That's a lot of attack speed. Also, a whole 80 extra life on their max roll. That's looking very potent. Because it's a 7 link. To be fair, one of the links is blind, but blind is getting buffed, and I think with level 30, it probably has a lot of increased effect. Blind itself is not going to buff with the nodes on the tree. I think this helmet could be usable at this point. Definitely still a bit of a trade-off, but level 30 melee fizz and faster attacks, that's pretty big. Brisk Wrap is now getting increased damage for 15 dexterity. Pretty cool. Mana recovery from flasks. I'm not sure exactly what that is meant to entail, but I bet you there is some very cool stuff you can do with that. Bronze Life we have seen, we're getting that plus 5 level to socket and movement gems. Probably looking at Ignite, Frostblink, and just spamming the lightning one. I don't remember the name. Alright, Chalice of Horrors. So we're losing the block, life, bunch of leech. Instead, we're getting a bunch of extra block against cursed enemies, so it's a bit more specialized. They inflict decay for 700 chaos damage for 8 seconds. It also always flees monsters. And you get plus 3 level to gems. Very interesting. I apologize, I've done a lot of talking today. Clay Shaper is losing that damage, but gaining a lot more. So, huge fizz damage to golems. So I'm feeling probably Stone Golem or Carrion. Looking to, I really like Clay Shaper right now. Hook of Flame, we have already seen. That 40% of fizz taken as fire. Looks very spicy. Corpse Walker, losing the damage and the life regen. But you now gain movement speed and flat regen. Interesting. I think this could definitely add up quite a bit of life regen. And decent amount of movement speed as well. So Covenant unique body armor. So you no longer cost and reserve life, but they get added chaos damage at a higher level, and skills gain a base life cost. Okay, so instead of it switching you from mana to cost, it's adding the life cost, but giving you a huge amount of added chaos damage. Something there, maybe. Definitely hard to deal with, though. Perhaps you could use it with skills that already only cost life, such as, say, Poison Reap. Because then this is not a downside. It has no base mana cost. You only get the 7th link, the 29 added chaos damage. Very interesting, I think. Pelkeen. Bit buff to the number. Crown of Thorns. More energy shield. Very cool. Sybil's Paw gives more cast speed and more life gain on hit by spells. I don't know if anyone's still going to use it, but that is definitely something that would help. This is Courage Shield. "100% chance to block attack if you've blocked spell recently, and 100% chance to block spell if you've blocked attack recently." This is kind of like Mistwall in my mind, but a block version instead of an evasion version. This is something that I think could be pretty strong. And by I think could be, that seems very, very damn strong. This is pretty cool. We're getting rid of the variants on this and a better leech. Justice Defiance is a good chest. I used to use it a lot. I would have liked a little bit more than this for that item. I mean, that's just crazy. Uh, Death Rush is getting crazy. Completely scrapping it. You can recover 5% of life on kill. Very nice. And you gain Adrenaline for 3 seconds on kill. Adrenaline is 100% increased damage, 25 attack, cast, and move speed, and something else. I should probably know this. But that's gonna be spicy for sure. Definitely a lot stronger than Onslaught, which people would run it for before. It does lose the accuracy and all of that though, which is part of the reason I was gonna use it on my new build. So Death Rush is definitely getting dropped on my new build for 319. Deer Stalker just getting a bit of a numerical buff at the expense of its life. Dead Bell is getting. Oh, interesting. I assume this means it still exerts it, but it doesn't take up the charge? I would hope so. I doubt this is going to be used very much, but exert uptime is definitely something that people have been struggling with, and so if you want to get a higher attack speed, this could be the way to do it. Um, wow, huge life sacrificing. That's going to be a very niche build, but I think there's some interesting stuff you could do with that. Yeah, very big numerical buff, but it is a very big range, so you're going to be able to choose exactly how much life you want to be sacrificing. There's going to be someone who makes some crazy cast one damage taken thing set up to that. Although I'm not sure sacrifice procs cast one damage taken. I guess we'll see. Maybe get a Juices build with that or something. Get a buff to Diala's Malefaction in basically every way. We get extra levels, a bunch more quality, a bunch more experience. Wow, this is gonna be an interesting one to see. Um, this is just getting a numerical buff. Very nice. 37 to 71 chaos damage per curse on enemy on Directory Scorn Helmet. I think that's usable. I think there's gonna some more maybe some more spell poison build type item support with a lot of flat chaos damage, and there's stuff that could work there. You get a bunch of increased spell damage here on tenure, buffing the cast speed here, and you get extra intelligence. A nice little numerical buff. All right, this one, holy crap. Doomfletch just got catapulted into relevance. Instead of getting 100% of fizz damage as extra damage of a random element, we gain 100% of weapon physical damage as extra damage of each element. So instead of getting 100% fizz and 100% Ellie, we're getting 100% fizz and 300% Ellie. This just got given the Void Forge treatment. That is astronomical. This bow was already usable. And this just turned it into, I think, possibly an extremely powerful item that people are going to investigate. So keep your eye out for Doomfletch. I mean, this is just an absurd buff. People were talking about unique bows, and wow, Doomfletch. Doomfletch is going to see some action. There's no doubt. Dust Toe unique boots. We're losing a bunch of random stats, but we're getting a bit more move speed, a bit more armor and evasion, and once again, more chaos damage. A lot of flat chaos damage buffs to these items here. It's an interesting avenue they're going here. Losing the life, losing the cannot block downside. We're getting a bunch more armor and energy shield. Lost a life, but wow, that is a big buff to armor and energy shield. Could be some stuff there. I'm not actually very familiar with this weapon. I suppose that's kind of the point of a lot of shield. A lot of these uniques are pretty forgotten. I don't know some of these. Ephemeral Edge, losing its damage and its leech in some flat lightning. Max with this weapon have added maximum lightning damage equal. Okay, I didn't see this one the last time I was reviewing this patch notes. Attacks with this weapon have added maximum lightning damage equal to 20% of your energy shield. Wow. You do lose a shit ton of life, but if you're, say, reserving your life because you're doing a low life build or something like that, then reduced maximum life does nothing, unless I guess you're running clarity or vitality or precision. But if you're not running any of those on your life, this is a non-factor. It's only maximum, so it's not completely insane, but that is a lot. Potentially on a build that's really scaling some energy shield, like 2,000 flat lightning damage on your maximum range. Um, Could be usable. Interesting to see if someone works with that. As Mike Peak, gain Unwavering Stance, which is pretty cool. Margrave's Tricorn. You can now be touched by tormented spirits? New goal? Question mark? That is very interesting. Okay. I actually don't know what kind of buffs tormented spirits give out, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, they're just huge numerical stuff. That's very interesting and weird. I wonder if anyone's going to be able to abuse that. Flame Sight, we just get a bunch of Scorch Chance. Pretty nice. Fox Shade, we're getting a bunch of evasion rating and move speed on full life. Damage of enemies hitting you is unlucky while you are on full life. Wow, that is powerful. Stacking this with something like, max evasion rating and Wind Dancer on the tree, do some strong stuff with this. Though I think the Kintsugi buffs might be a bit stronger than this. I apologize. Gale Sight, just getting brittle now. Joffrey's Crest, so we're no longer getting the +1 Socket of Gems or the Summon Holy Relics have reduced cooldown recovery rate. Yeah, a bunch of armor and evasion energy shield. Fire, cold, and lightning resist modifiers now have values of +20 and 30%. I think I may not be familiar with this helmet. Hopefully that is something interesting, but the Summon Holy Relic nerf is a bit unfortunate. Because that is a skill that people were looking at this league. Maybe an undue nerf. Though maybe this is insane. I actually am not particularly familiar with Joffrey's Crest. Giant Spain unique gloves. Now have 10% reduced attack speed and arrows pierce 2 additional targets. So yeah, before you can get pierced on your boots through influence mods, you can now get it on a unique pair of gloves for when you're early on. You don't have to waste a support slot. That is pretty damn nice for like, early mapping and that kind of thing for when you're leveling a bow build. Very cool. Ruthkul's Pelt, bunch more evasion and armor, like a lot of these uniques, a bunch of maximum life like it already had, and even more life regen. Interesting. Lost the cold res though. That's a lot of cold res to lose, so I don't know. Heartbreaker is getting a bunch more mana and way more faster start of energy shield recharge. Wow. Interesting. Replica Heartbreaker, a bit of life and faster start of energy shield recharge. Heat Shiver. 1% of cold damage as extra fire per 1% chill effect on enemy, and 100% of cold damage as extra fire damage against frozen enemies. This is interesting. Getting cold as extra fire based on your chill and if they are frozen. So obviously you could use Elementalist to get a lot of power out of this, even with your fire damage. But the freezing is going to be solely done by the cold damage because the Elementalist node does not allow your fire damage to freeze, only chill. This is very potent if you can figure out a build to get this to work. Something to consider, I think. This could be very interesting if someone can make that work. Get both effects at the same time. Highwayman. Gets a move speed. 100% chance to steal on hit instead of 25. Honor Home. A bit of a numerical buff. Sorrow, we saw this one. 100% conversion instead of 50. Big. Similar to a +2 Pierce Giantsbane, this is just a very nice in-between item. It lets you just solve that Fizz to Cold convert before you can get your Watcher's Eye, your good double conversion gloves, that kind of stuff. Very big for that transitional period in early mapping. Here's Truth. Bow attacks have Culling Strike. Okay. A whole bunch of dexterity and a decent amount of crit multi. Wow, that seems like a very strong amulet. Ice Tomb. Lose the chill duration, but it essentially gives old Arctic armor effect, kind of. Or I don't know if it's still the way Arctic armor works, but interesting. Perhaps usable with Heat Shiver, presuming it works on bosses. Maybe a combo there. Ignomon. Light radius and nearby enemies are blinded. Wow. That's very strong. Shitload of life regen on Immortal Flesh. 350 is... Wow, that is a lot. Infernal Mantle, +3 to levels. Increased spell damage taken while on low mana. Holy crap, you do not want low mana with Infernal Mantle. Seems like maybe you're gonna run Eldritch Battery, perhaps? To really avoid this? If you're running Mom. Or just run Eldritch Battery, basically, and you can get another +3 gym levels. Sign gives 10 level 10 Enduring Cry. Very cool, actually. 3 life per level instead of 1. Wow, that's a lot of life regen too. Wow. Yeah, so here's this Kintsugi buff I was talking about. It loses the life, but I think that's okay. 35% less damage taken if you have not been hit recently. It used to be 20. That with Wind Dancer on an evasion build, which evasion and suppression on the right side of the tree and blind and all that, big buffs to Wind Dancer, Kintsugi. They are really, really trying to bring the evasion package in line with the whole armor and block package that people are meta right now. So people, I think, really need to look over on the right side of the tree for their tanky characters now, especially with that Trickster change. Holy crap, we'll be talking about that. Spectre Wolves, they are a bit faster. Pretty cool. So, Learcast. Bunch more life, a bunch more mana, bunch more damage. Very cool. Yeah, actually, possibly usable item now. Lightning Coil. Yep, got the same treatment as the other item. 50% of fizz damage taken. This is only hits, though, so a little less universal as lightning damage. Octonial Caress lost its maximum life, but a bit more consistent. Oh, we saw the Magnate change already. Malachi's Stimuli. Spells 20% chance to deal double damage. Very interesting. Malachi's Vision. Now it has to generate 400 energy shield per second if all equipped items are corrupted. So it used to be 250. That's a decent amount of energy shield regen. I'm not sure that's really going to be worth the effort, though. Mark of the Red Covenant no longer has all the movement speed, but they get more damage. Okay. Hurry Urki is getting changed. It's basically just going to do a lot more damage, but it's no longer a 7 link. Just the percentage increase of damage is much, much, much bigger. Watua Tapuna Shield no longer gives tar. Take a crit, but now when you block, so a lot more consistent. Or RF on your minions and on yourself. Meginord's a bit more damage. The belt and the gloves are getting knockback distance. A more consistent knockback. Less strength though. Mind Spiral. Now, okay, so mana stacking. Oh boy. We're losing the increased damage. Getting more mana recoup, and we're getting more max mana as extra maximum energy shield. I already ran this helmet a couple leagues ago when I did a Mana Bond self-cast character, and it is insane value even before. This is a huge buff to this item. Wow. Something to consider for my Mana Bond character for, like, or my Mjolnir Inquisitor. I may be looking at this helmet in the late game for that character if we can afford to not have a rare helmet. 15% of max mana as extra maximum energy shield is insane power, and recoup is also very, very nice. That's something I'm going to be looking at. Ming's Heart is getting much more downsides, but holy crap, the upside. 60% fizz damage is extra chaos. If you can afford these downsides, that is some ludicrous damage on a poison build that it's using a physical based spell or attack. Moku's Embrace. We've already seen this one, I believe. Much more attack speed and cast speed. And the activation for all damage taken from hits can ignite you. This is very interesting with the self-ignite. Definitely going to be some interesting stuff with that. Launcher School's Grass, bit of a numerical buff, but it also gave zombie builds. Oh no, they already had the Explode. I see. Sorry. But they deal more damage, a lot more damage. Ayamu Sign, bit of a numerical buff. Nycta's Lantern, we saw this. Obliteration is getting, losing its damage, losing its crit chance, but more of that Fizz's Extra Chaos. They're really pushing this Fizz's Extra Chaos, and I think that's very, very, very cool. I think there's going to be some interesting stuff. Remember how I said Poison Reap with that one helmet? I think Poison Reap could really be something on the table right now. I'm going to be looking at that later, I think. Poison Reap looks very, very potent. All of these Fizz's Extra Chaos. There was that one that had the level supported by level 29 Chaos added damage, but it would make your mana cost as extra life cost. But if you're using a spell that's already life cost only, then that's not a downside. And you just basically get a free Omega 7 link, like 7.5 link. So I see Poison Reap. Sorry, I hit my mic. I see Poison Reap. I hit it again. Look at me. I need to stop waving my finger. I see Poison Reap. I'm gonna be looking at that. Prison Weave. More LE res and more flat damage. Replica Prison Weave, kind of the same treatment. Ralakesh Impatience. No longer per second while stationary. It now causes your minimum frenzy endurance to be equal to your maximum while you are stationary. Ah, a bit of a nerf to the good old boot swap. By a bit of a nerf, I mean complete removal. It now is basically just have all the charges while you are stationary. I like the idea of a bit more investment into stationary playstyles, and this is a big one. I think there's gonna be some interesting stuff with this probably. Rainbow Stride lost all of its energy shield, but it gains a bunch of move speed and more block. No, less move speed, sorry, but a bunch more block. What? Always free shock and ignite. Ah. Wow. They giving you reduced duration and attribute requirements. I did not see this one either. When I reviewed, I told you I skimmed pretty quickly. Rat Cage is losing some of its downside, and now gains way more life. And 100% of fire damage taken from hits as physical damage. Wow. Only hits though, but still. Wow. Interesting. Wrath Pith Globe unique shield. Now has sacrificed 10% of your life when you use or trigger the rare line right there. A spell skill. Apparently that was already a thing though. Bit of a numerical buff. I didn't know this item existed. Bunch of crit chance and spell damage per life. I did not know this item existed. Something to keep my eye on. That's a big numerical buff, more than doubled. But once again, the downside is buffed. So they're kind of really trying to swing items in two directions. They buff the upside, but they also buff the downside, so that it makes it a more specialized item that's more build defining and that kind of thing. I think that's a very cool direction that they're taking with a lot of this stuff. Cool. Restless Ward, more move speed, bunch more life regen, and duration. Very, very cool numerical buff to this. I think it could be usable now actually for that sheer amount of ludicrous life regen per endurance charge. That is a lot. 10 to 20% chance of getting a frenzy charge on hit while blinded. Or support for being while blinded. There is that Timeless Jewel Keystone for that as well. Something to consider. Reverberation Rod is just getting additional supports. Both Control Destruction and Arcane Surge. Might be a usable item now, similar to Bitter Dream. Good move speed to the unique sword. Unique ring lost its damage. But now the special summon wolves are always instead of only 10%. That is very big. Rhyme Gaze just got wow. Huge buff to damage. Big nerf to tank. Interesting. Lost its life, but a bunch more energy shield and life regen to Rise of the Phoenix. Frost Reach lost its attack speed, but you gain another chain and a bunch more increased damage. Definitely a much nicer leveling bow. Taffle's Flame gets a huge block bonus and resist bonus. Good stuff. Shaper's Seed. Big bonus to mana regeneration and life regen to both you and allies. Throne's Pace. A bunch of stun and block recovery. Maybe that's good. Not as good as Zone Immunity, but might be worth using. Chevron's Revelation. What the hell? Um, 200, I didn't see this either. 250 mana for a ring slot is ludicrous for a mana stacking build. This item was already considered somewhat worth it when you're early on with a mana stacking build. This is a ludicrous amount of mana. 250 flat mana is a lot. That is something to look at. Keep in mind, you can catalyst this. That's looking that's looking at 300 mana. Holy crap. Might be something to use in my build coming up. Alright, moving on. Light of Breath, I'm not really sure how to say this item, but minions convert fizz damage to cold. They deal no non-cold damage. Interesting. I'm not sure how you're supposed to get the rest of the convert. I mean, obviously there is the gloves, but when you're using the gloves, you'd rather just kind of do 4 green and get all the conversion from that. So, I'm not sure about that one. Singularity getting a numerical buff. Very cool. This skull head's getting changed to where minions get a bunch of block, tank type stuff. Very cool. Springleaf is now flat life regen instead of percent. Much better for leveling, but worse in the late game. Not that anyone uses Springleaf in the late game. Losing the Herald of Ice damage, but a bunch of extra damage to attacks and freeze duration. Interesting. Just a nice numerical buff to Stone of Lazoir. Storm Charger, losing its fizz to lightning convert. That's sad. You're unaffected by shock ground. That's very good. Extra move speed. And, oh, more lightning ailment effect. And more duration of lightning ailments. But, good God, the divining is going to be a pain. Especially with how divines are going to be super expensive this league. Skills result traps throw up to 3 additional traps, but they randomly around a targeted location. And traps cannot be triggered by enemies. Interesting. So essentially you're going to throw them out like mines. They won't trigger, but they just have a certain duration and they'll go off. Seems like a clunky playstyle, but that is a lot of extra traps. Interesting. That might actually be OP as hell. I guess we'll find out. Depends on how bad waiting for trap duration is. I don't know. Nice buff to Thief's Torment. Tier of Purity. Reduced level requirement, and you're getting a bit extra attributes. You know, nice leveling thing. 1,000 Ribbons, we saw this. Bunch of numerical buff. 1,000 Teeth Timu. Losing the Reflect as life. Now reflects 1,000 to 10,000 physical damage to attackers on block. They're really kind of pushing Reflect into reality here, I gotta say. Thunder Fist gloves, losing their energy shield and duration, but we're getting oh, and the sun duration and the lightning damage. Now it gets a bunch more evasion energy shield and effective lightning elements. And then level 30 added lightning damage. This is a lot. More than makes up for this for the skill that's socketed in the gloves. And 100%. Wow, these gloves are very usable again. I used to use these way back in the day as a clear setup, and then I'd have a 6-link single target setup. But 100% effective lightning elements and level 30 added lightning damage is really something to consider. I have to say. Um, Thunderfist might be a very nice, cheap build setup for just like a nice map clear, and maybe even can get some good single target with all that shock effect. Sap on Thunder's side. Time Clasp. A bit of recoup on both life and mana. That's pretty cool. The skill effect duration thing is getting buffed in both directions and more cast speed. Something to consider maybe with the traps. I don't know if this also affects traps or not. We saw the Valkyrie already. We're almost done with unique items. A long section. Ontario's Flight, losing the recoup of mana. You get more, you get that Quicksilver. We saw this one already. I forgot. Bull's Vision. 400 life a second. A lot. Oh, wow. Warp Timepiece Amulet. Debuffs on you expire 100% faster, which means it takes half as long, by the way. Not that it takes no time, it just takes half as long. You get more cast speed, more attack speed, and more reduced steel effect direction. So they're really kind of pushing the reduced skill effect duration. Wow, yeah, so the movement thing with I can't think of the damn name, but the lightning, I don't know if it's called lightning warp. I don't remember what it's called. But it really likes reduced skill effect duration, and we're getting a lot of it with Time Clasp, Warped Timepiece. There might be something there. Good stuff. Wheel of the Storm Sail. And that'll mostly just help with clear feeling. You know, single target, you're just spamming it. You don't really care about how long the delay is. This is a weird one. I don't really know. Windscreen Boots. Area of effect of Hex skills. Interesting. I don't know if that affects Bane. Maybe it does. Under Trap. Bunch of extra stats. Boost speed. Energy shield. Good stuff. Just nice stat buff. Wraithlord. Cannot have... Whoa! I didn't see this one. Freaking... man, I barely reviewed this. Apparently I barely reviewed this thing. Cannot have non-spectre minions. +2 to maximum number of specters. Someone on Reddit made a post about a keystone that would make it where you could only have one type of minion, but you could have 2 additional of that type of minion. Wow, they were close. This is very interesting. That does mean no Animate Guardian or anything like that, so there's definitely some issues here for that build, but 2 additional specters is very big. Worm's Molt. Huge level requirement increase. Better Leech, that's not really a huge deal. This is kind of weird because Leech is one of those things that's pretty much solid once you do enough damage. So I feel as though this is just completely moot. Maybe I'm wrong though. Anyway, um, goodbye all the faded uniques. Very sad. So we've got some stuff. This is the stuff that we saw in the Balance Manifesto, but I will go over it. So spell suppression in essence, we're getting a huge buff to spell suppression on the tree. Right here. Big buff, just spell suppression on the tree on the right side of the tree. Mentioned how I said right side of the tree, tanky builds, looking really good. Evasion, spell suppression, very available on the tree. Blind effect, all that kind of stuff. But items are losing a lot of their spell suppression. A lot. Like 30, 40%. So slapping spell suppression on armor, yes, block builds is no longer going to be as easy of a feat at all. A lot harder. Arctic armor, a bit of a numerical buff while standing still. I think this is probably not enough, but it is interesting. A lot less damage taken, but hopefully we see more of this while stationary effects. I think it could be something interesting, especially with those boots being changed. Those are more impactful than this by a long shot. Flesh and Stone, I do like this. This one I think is genuinely very potent. Because once again, I'm talking about the whole blind stuff and all of that. This is a big, I mean, god damn. Defense evasion with blind, you know, Kintsugi chest with Wind Dancer. You slap on Flesh and Stone, you basically you have like 90%, 90%, 95% chance to evade, and you got spell suppression from the tree because now it's super easy to get on the tree. And then things that aren't near you, you just take a bunch less damage. Whenever you are hit, you take like 50% less damage, but you have so much evasion rating that you're barely ever hit, so the Kintsugi and Wind Dancer things almost never proc negatively for you. I mean, I think the evasion side of the tree is looking very, very tanky right now. A Defiance Banner got a bit of a numerical nerf to its armor and evasion rating, but a big buff to the reduced critical strike chance of nearby enemies. This is definitely something to look out for, I think. Hardcore players are going to like that, I think. Yeah, Wind Dancer, like I said, no longer a 40% more evasion rating, but 10% more chance to evade. This is way stronger than 40% more evasion rating. It's a big deal. Arrow dancing. This I don't really care about arrow dancing, but we're it's a bit more specialized now, basically. But it's just kind of less effective in both directions. I don't know. Ward changes. I'm excited for this one. 4 seconds instead of 5. Already a big buff. But whoo, this second line added 5 tiers of a new suffix modifier that can roll on ward base types, granting up to 58% faster restoration of ward. I take this as each item can get up to 58%. I hope I'm not misinterpreting. But I did some math, and if you had all 3 of these at 58%, you're getting your ward restoration to under 1.5 seconds. 1.5 seconds and your ward will recharge. I think combining this with an evasion-based Wind Dancer Kintsugi type build would be a very interesting ticket, because suddenly you got those setups where you take less damage if you haven't been hit recently, and also you have a huge ward buffer if it hasn't been spent recently. And so basically it means unless you get hit by 2 attacks back to back instantly, which is very hard to have happen because of evasion's a mechanic in the sense of how it adds up. You can go check that out on the wiki. There's some math on that, but it's not just a random chance. There's a accruing effect for when you get hit through evasion rating. Slap ward onto that, and I think a ward evasion build is gonna be very, very tanky. Something to look out for, and something I will be trying out later this league. Grasping Mail nerf and Gravicious Veiled mod nerf removal, actually, as well. We're no longer getting life as energy shield, but we get a bit of fizz damage as fire and fizz damage as lightning. Pretty interesting, but big nerf to Inquisitor as myself. I was going to be using that craft on my build, and it's gone. Yeah, blind buffs. I was talking about this. It's not huge, but it's something. I think pretty cool. Mind over matter change. We are using this in my build. It's going to be pretty cool. Mind over matter now causes 40% of damage from taken from mana before life. Big buff. But Cloak of Defiance lost its effect, and so did the influence mods. I was expecting a Cloak of Defiance rework this patch, given this change and the fact that they were changing 100 uniques, but apparently not. But this essentially means way less dependent on Cloak of Defiance and this mod, which is a big deal. I think it's a very cool change. We don't really need all the mana regen that the other people needed. So this literally makes it to where we don't need Cloak of Defiance. Before this change, we would have probably run Cloak of Defiance just because it's that strong. And they removed that requirement for my build, which is very, very nice. The big reason I went mana stacking. It was actually going to originally be not mana stacking, but those changes caused me to do so. Fortify becoming much more available for melee builds. Very cool. This is a complaint a lot of people have had for a long time. So, good stuff. Twice as many stacks as previously. Very good change, I feel. Oh boy, minions. So this is a big one. We also saw this in the manifesto. But once again, I'm going to be making this assuming you haven't read the manifesto. So, oh boy. All right. So damage and life scaling values have been lowered by a lot. Big nerfs here. Level of monster created by Red Spectre has been lowered again. People are really upset about this one. We got a new base type, Bone Ring. We saw this in the reveal. Gives some resists, but more importantly, it allows you to roll some very powerful minion modifiers on it. The spirit shields that are bone based now have minion mons. Very cool. Look very strong. We've got low level versions of the minion wands just for more convenient leveling gearing. Very cool. This change I feel is actually probably a pretty damn big buff. To be honest. The whole setup of a mirror tier helmet being your main gym setup is no longer a thing. Necessarily. But it seriously improves build that run a lot of different minions, because now instead of it just being +3 to one minion, it's +2 to all of them, and you might have like 5. So this is a huge buff in my opinion. This is also pretty cool actually. The additional damage on jewels has been increased quite a bit. Some nodes in the tree getting some reduced. All right, so we got some numerical changes. You know, this is a reasonable nerf, I think. Bit of extra crit chance, but less damage. Bit more radius for the base skill, which is actually pretty nice. I don't play a ton of minions. This doesn't seem too harsh. Animate Guardian is getting a big damage buff. Very cool. Weird change here. Animate Weapon now costs more mana. Not sure about that one. Alakali's Fang is getting any big nerf. The poison duration nerf is very large. And losing the physical is extra chaos. I think I've seen a lot of posts about that not being very strong anymore. Buff to Herald of Agony. Pretty big, actually. This essentially equates to 50% attack speed. Very good. 50% increased on top of the already 150. So, it's more like a 1 in 5 increase. Sentinel of Purities do more damage. Cool. But this is counteracted a bit by the global nerf, I think. Like this is on top of the nerf that they gave to all minion skills. So it's gonna be kind of a trade-off. It'll probably be about break even, I think. But this change to the Crusade Slam, I think it's pretty cool. A little more consistent. Summon Phantasm completely counteracting the nerfs earlier, at least at low gem levels, and actually being a total buff at high gem levels. And it's a bit more consistent, which is very cool. Raise Zombie losing its move speed and costing less mana. An overall nerf because of the previous ones. Carrion Golem losing some life quality, but gaining it back just on the normal thing. Interesting. I wonder what the quality does now. I don't know. Doesn't say. So Chaos Golem looks like it's getting a buff. Very nice. Flame Golem. See here. Now be able to use its mortar spell at close range. That seems pretty good. More, wow. So added flat damage. Jewel's gonna be very strong here now. Same here. Ooh, yeah, they're really pushing added flat damage to minions now. I don't think it was a very good scaling point before, but it's looking pretty damn spicy now because they're also buffing the jewels. Hmm. Looks like Ice Golem's actually losing some life? Maybe? Bit more damage? Not a very big buff to the Ice Golem, which is surprising because no one uses them. A bunch of damage on Lightning Golems as well. Stone Golem? I thought we already had Stone Golem. Oh, no, we didn't. Stone Golem. I'm not sure, just some life changes. Summon Holy Relic. Wow. Huge buff. Yeah. Very, very large. More life regen, but the Helm enchant is less important. That seems fine to me. More base stuff, less enchant scaling. SRS, losing the less added damage and gaining 38% more damage. Summon Raging Spirit is getting a huge buff here. Even with that, like, nerf to generic damage, this change from 15 to -15 to 0 pretty much counteracts that. And then you get this extra 38% more on top. Also tankier, so I mean SRS popping, maybe? Seems pretty cool. Summon Reaper. Consuming a minion no longer gives 40% increased damage. Instead, it gives 40% attack speed instead of 20, 40% move speed instead of 20, and 30% AoE. Um, but they have nerfed its slash attack? Interesting. I imagine this is in lieu of the ailment changes because this is supposed to be its bleed attack. Big nerf to scaling mages. Arbalists. Um, superior buff to its accuracy, apparently. Wow, like tripled its accuracy rating based on that wording. And they also deal more damage. Very cool. Basically big rework to this. The Tabukai unique amulet now causes Summon Rising Spirits to deal 25% to 40% increased damage, less so, and causing Summon Rising Spirit to have increased maximum life previously. Wow. Big nerf to the, okay, never mind. SRS popping's not going to be very good. This one's a very important item to that. Whew. I'm afraid I do not know very much about minions, so that's why I'm kind of having to talk about what I feel, but, you know. But this is a big one, and this one I did know about. They had hidden penalties here, and they were very big. And to counteract that, Reaper lost its hidden bonus to it, but twice as much poison, 3.5 times much as ignite, and 7 times the bleed. I'm feeling, honestly, poison minions are looking insane. But we'll see. All of these look like they could be good. Critical stuff has been changed. Um, so Spirit Offering is now crit chance. We got some crit chance here. Helmet and Chance are now crit multi. Um, we've got things on the tree that give crit chance and crit multi instead of AoE and that kind of stuff. Now got minion critical strike chance on wands and shields. Seems pretty cool. And minion crit multi. We've lost the +2 on Necromancer on natural strength. Now it's Unholy Might. Now, this is a big nerf to the generic minion setup of any kind, which would always take +2 levels and love it. But Unholy Might can be very powerful. I expect poison minions to be very strong this league. And Unholy Might is something that, in the right situation, could be up to 30% more poison DPS for your build. Now, it is likely you would have some Visits Extra Chaos in your build or Chaos damage in your build prior to having Unholy Might, but it's still going to be a significant buff. Looks like for some minion stuff, the Spectres are getting nerfed on their crit chance. Alright, Corpse Explosion skills. So, Necromancer also losing the 50% life on their corpses. Nerfs to the small passives that give corpse life. Nerf to unearth quality. Detonate dead is actually gaining some explosion damage. at high levels, a big bonus. In fact, but Volatile Data is getting nerfed. Cremation is getting buffed by a lot. Volatile Dead is getting buffed. And Body Swap is getting buff. Very cool. Trying to counteract some of the corpse life stuff on Necromancer, but if you weren't Necromancer before, I think this is overall quite big, actually. We're losing the bugged specters though, so probably overall a nerf from lastly just because of the bug specters. But um, I think that's definitely very cool, and these are probably still very viable spells. They're always going to be mechanically very strong. Fire Trap just getting a huge numerical nerf. It was carrying RF build single target quite hard. Advanced Trap support no longer has the increased duration. Hasty Reconstruction notable. No longer had the cooldown recovery rate. Flamethrower Trap loses or gains a bit of damage. Very nice. Lightning's Fire Trap also gains quite a bit of damage. Very cool. Seismic Trap does a shitload less damage. We all saw this coming. Explosive Arrow. Basically, buff to hit damage, big nerf to ignite damage. Possibly still viable though, but a big nerf nonetheless. Cast on Death, the guaranteed crits on the alt quality getting removed. This is really the big kicker. Um, and cast on damage taken also though is losing a big amount of damage here. I think Ward Loop will probably still be very strong though. I think it'll be very, very powerful. Oh wow, yeah, Cast on Death's getting gutted. Holy crap. Whew. This is a cool buff, and part of the other reason I went mana stacking. Eternal Blessing is getting some aura effect, and so is Divine Blessing. But you can no longer do the Divine Blessing life tap setup. So no longer can you get a free aura by spending some life and some support gems. Always will. There's some other workarounds that people have been looking at though. Somber Mark is losing its flash charge generation. I don't know why it really needed that, but okay. Hydrosphere is getting gutted for minion build, projectile minions, basically. Completely destroyed. Like, Phantasms probably just got axed. I imagine Phantasms are probably using the crap out of this, and they just got axed completely. Underperforming skill buffs, everyone's been memeing about these, but Artillery Ballista is getting some numerical buffs. It seems pretty cool. It's sped up. And also, yeah, I mean, that just seems like a huge numerical buff. I believe this essentially refers to how fast it hits. Blazing Salvo getting a little bit of a buff, not too much though. Cleave gets +2 radius. Hog. That's the big meme. Crackling Lance getting some AoE. Actually, I think pretty important. I actually think this is pretty damn big. A lot of extra beam width, help your clear. Decoy Totem getting a bunch of life. I've been looking at Reflect Totems a bit. I may end up finally trying it this league. I think there's a lot more tools for it. Same with Devouring Totem, actually. Energy Blade Two-Hander getting buffed. I probably don't think it's still going to be worth it, but possibly someone can make it work. Firestorm getting buffed, but I don't think it's enough because it limits to 3. Haste is getting a numerical buff. Probably still not worth it for the average player, but it could be usable while leveling now for sure. But because of the move speed buff. Very cool. Reeve actually getting a decent numerical buff. Rejuvenating Totem getting some interesting buffs. Just, you know, nice life regen. Scorching Ray, a bit of base damage. About % or so. Scourge Arrow, actually a damn big numerical buff. I was going to say 40%, but I mean, that's up from 35. It's a 1 in 7 increase. That's big. Shock Nova is interesting. Because I am going to be using Shock Nova. I mean, it's pretty cool. We lose the increased effect of shock, though, which is kind of sad. Soul Rend is getting a numerical buff. Very cool. A big one. Wow. Spell Slinger getting a bit of base damage. Actually, quite a bit. Base damage. Sunderer, big buff. Way faster, and it gets a huge amount of damage. Definitely a very viable skill now, I think. People have been talking about it. I think it's going to be pretty cool. Ball Flame Blast getting buffed. Arrow Nova getting a pretty big buff. No one really uses that skill, but maybe it'll be usable now. Urgent Orders, a little better. And Critical Ailment Support, a little better as well. Vol Clarity is getting nerfed, more soul cost, consistent duration. Weakened Hex Touch. Attack granted by Weakened Hex Touch, granted cash request by past history not working as expected. Ah, so that seems like a bit of a buff actually. Very cool. Oh, Blood Sacrament. I haven't seen this before. So this Relic of the Patch Unique one, only available in Ultimatum League. Very short cast time necessary for the skill to function, but also encourages trying to spam as fast as possible or not a healthy playstyle for the game. Adjust Blood Sacrament to account for the rework to reservation mechanics. Changes support gem cost multipliers and various self-cast buffs. Very short cooldown. Yay. Blood Sacrament now deals way more base damage. Lost the more damage per life reserved. Instead, it now has 40% more damage with ailments per 10 life reserved, 8% more damage with hits per 10 life reserved. Ah, so ailment a bit nerfed, but hits kept the same. Maybe it's not nerfed out of this change, but it's definitely a big buff. A bit of a loss of radius, but the base life reservation did get reduced, which is very cool. But that's a pretty big cooldown. Okay, big one. Trickster. Trickster Ascendancy has been reworked. All right. Heartstopper is an interesting one. Every 10 seconds, take 40% less damage from hits for 5 seconds, and 40% less damage over time for 5 seconds. So now instead of it's like, sometimes you have a buff, and sometimes you have nothing. Now it's sometimes you have a buff to hits, and sometimes you have a buff to damage over time. So I think much better. Okay. I think this is definitely usable, but probably not going to be a very high priority for most people. Polymath is a weird one. You get 3% more damage for each different type of mastery you've allocated, and you gain 1% of life, energy, shield, and mana on kill for every type of mastery you've allocated. Sorry for the hiccups. A weird one. I think some builds are going to be able to do a lot with this, but some are going to be able to do very little. So, going to be a weird one. Switch Killer. Oh, baby. +2 maximum frenzy. That's... So now this is actually the highest frenzies you can get in the game, as opposed to Raiders. So all the Ice Bite people are going over to Switch Killer, or to Trickster now. Crazy. And all this charge duration means that you can just get that influenced implicit for frenzy charge every like 15 seconds or whatever, and you easily maintain max frenzy charges at all times. So I mean, that combo just seems kind of insane, to be honest. One Step Ahead looks nuts. Get a bunch of action speed, and nearby monsters lose action speed. And it kind of works like Unstoppable from Juggernaut. I mean, it just seems insane. Means that you can't get slowed below this point by chill, temporal chains, whatever. It's crazy. Escape Artist. Pretty much exactly the same as it worked before. Soul Drinker, I called this like a month ago. I'm so happy. Basically, the big kicker here is Energy Shield Overleach. Trickster has Energy Shield Overleach. This is big. The Energy Shield leech nodes on the tree are actually very, very powerful, and I think this is going to be something that people are looking at. 20% attack speed and cast speed is nothing to sneeze at. Spellbreaker is also looking pretty damn strong. 20% spell suppression chance, 10% suppress spell damage on full Energy Shield. Definitely something that could be up a decent amount of the time, especially when you're like full Energy Shield and then you get hit by a boss attack. Or rather a boss spell. Tank a lot less damage. This though seems super strong. It obviously won't help very much for bossing, but presumably you'd have a little bit of recharge, start of recharge improvement, and so for bossing you just take a big hit, and then your energy shield will recharge to full. Whereas for clearing, that can be a problem because you're constantly taking damage. This essentially completely removes that almost entirely. Half of the time when you suppress a spell damage, it starts your recharge right away, and a recharge is a huge recovery mechanic for energy shield builds. Um, I don't know what to say. It seems super powerful. Ascendant is getting changed a bit, which is very cool. Juggernaut getting a bit of a change as well. Unbreakable no longer grants 2% life regen, 5% reduced damage taken, or physical damage from hits is regenerated. Instead, 8% of armor applies to LE damage from hits. This is powerful. It's basically Transcendence, but super nerfed, but without the downside. The downside's really big, so even getting only 8% of the effect without that downside is possibly insane. You get enough armor and that effect is going to be potent. And this gives you that physical damage taken from hits is regenerated life is another notable on the Juggernaut tree. Chieftain's Slam from the Toa's Chosen is getting huge buff because it doesn't work with Fist 4 and all that kind of stuff. It's a nice little buff. To be honest, this is just dumb. I think Pathfinder got kind of shafted here, especially with the blast changes. It lost its chance to free shock and ignite. It gained some magic utility flask effect, which is good. Don't get me wrong, 20% flask effect's pretty good. And then it lost the 6% reduced elemental damage taken. I feel like Pathfinder needed more than this. I think it's going to be the new Trickster. I think Pathfinder is going to just be horribly underpowered. Crystallized Omniscience, huge nerf. We saw it coming. It's going to 15 from 10. It'll still be usable. Melting of the Flesh, kind of the same idea. Huge nerf, but I think in the right way. This means that if you can get more max res, it's the same effect. So you just gotta have more tools to get more max res, instead of having to have more tools to get more like normal res or whatever. I think this is a good nerf. -4 is not that big. You can overcome that with the right scaling. So I think Melting will still definitely be a staple item. So Voltaxic Rift's getting nerfed. It no longer, it only works for attacks now instead of also spells and stuff. That's kind of sad. And instead of being 100%, now you only get 90. Shitty in my opinion. Rattler now only works with attacks. I don't know why it's really that big of a deal. But the Mastery on top of Voltaxic Rift will give you that 100% again. Actually, it'll give you 105. So I guess that's pretty cool, because now you can go to 105. So I suppose that's pretty nice, actually, if you're running that Mastery. There's an extra point on the tree, though. Brittle getting nerfed, so now your boots with Brittle walking ground is going from 5% to 2%. Still, 2% base crit is really good. We're losing the mana reservation mastery. The life one's going to 20% instead of 30%, and the R effect going from 15 to 10 from the balance manifesto. Pretty big nerfs, honestly. Another reason, by the way, I went mana stacking instead of the typical aura setup for my build I'm going to be running. Flash charges on hits is going from 7 to 3. The meme get hit, gain like 20 flash charges, proc a flask on full charges, recover 6% life from being either Scion or Pathfinder is gone. That infinite recovery, assuming you're getting hit, is now gone. Pretty much. I don't think you can really make it work with only 3 charges on hit. A thing was lost today. It's very sad. Removing the focus thing to skill costs. I didn't ever used it. I'm sure some people did though, so that's probably pretty sad for them. Chainbreaker, big changes. I think huge buffs. This is gonna be a very something to look at. I think 1 rage regenerated for every 25 mana regenerated. You can get a lot of mana regen. Like we're talking, you could probably get like 25 rage regen a second with some effort. That's some serious berserk uptime and stuff like that. Like I'm seeing some spicy stuff coming from this. I'm excited to see that. Mana stacking berserk builds. I'm excited to see that. Damage recoup is getting added to jewels. Pretty cool change. We're getting shock spreading. Oh! Well, now that makes a lot of sense with their support gems. They're adding a lot of shock stuff here. This is very cool. I did not see this. I assumed that all of this was from stuff from the Balance Manifesto, but this is not in the Balance Manifesto. Very cool. Losing the 80% crit chance is kind of sad, but man. The Arcing Blows cluster is moved into the shadow area. Is that the +1 chain one? Oh no, that's a mastery. I don't know which one the Arcing Blows one. I think it's the attack one that's next to CI right now. New cluster has an added Arcing Blows ability. Grants critical multi with lightning skills and critical strike chance against shocked enemies. Oh wow. Might be something I end up taking in my build. That's very interesting. Okay. Adding a lot of lightning damage stuff support. Oh, that's a big nerf. Ow. The duration of elements with focus has been reduced quite a bit. And it's been adjusted. Avoiding being stunned is buffed a little bit. Okay. Okay, whatever. This is kind of stupid. They're removing some of the reduced trap duration for that that item that makes it to extra traps that are thrown. So they're removing some of the reduced trap duration to make sure that's not OP as hell. Molten Shell buff effect getting removed as an enchantment. It's kind of sucky. Vol Breach is now dropping from Breach Lords. Combinators are being moved, and existing ones in Standard cannot be used on mirror items. Crazy. Monsters are now unable to evade reflected damage. This is all interesting stuff. We got div cards, and we've got just some bug fixes. Alrighty. That covers everything for this. I think there's a lot of exciting stuff here. I'm particularly interested in all the shock tools now. I'm really going to be looking at a build with that, and probably some of those tools I'm going to use on my Mjolnir build. I'm very interested in the Archnem loot changes. I think that's going to make the game just feel better in general. I'm and I think this league's gonna be good. A lot of these changes make me very happy, and I think very few of the nerfs are really all that undeserved. The only thing I think that people were really kind of upset with was some of the minion stuff, but some of those items are looking really spicy, and I think that stuff's gonna be very cool. So I'm excited. Be ready for more videos from me on build ideas that I will be doing throughout this league. That's my intention. I'm going to be trying new builds out and doing some of these things that I talked about here. Um, anyway, yeah, look out for a video reviewing my starter build that I already posted a video about. I'm going to be doing a bit of an update on that and how this changes what I'm going to do when the POB updates. So yeah, that is it from me. These are our 319 patch notes. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys are as excited for Lake of Kalanda as I am. I think this is going to be a fantastic league, and I am ready to play it next Friday. So yeah, have a good one, everybody, and I will see you when the league starts.